Call the General Government Subcommittee to order and ask for attendance.
Chair Kuhn.
Here.
Representatives Van Workum.
Here.
Kelly.
Here.
Maddock.
Here.
Snyder.
Here.
Chair, all members are present.
Great, that sounds good. And today we're here to hear House Fiscal Michael Knassen's review of the current budget proposal, both by the governor and how it ended up last year. So people have questions. You know, I'm thinking if we can just do questions by department rather than wait till the end. So is that okay with you, Michael? All right. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Kuhn, subcommittee members. Michael Knassen, and I'm going to be going through the House Fiscal Agency summary and analysis document that is in front of you. That is a comprehensive list of all changes recommended by the governor to the budget. And I'll be starting at the top. This top table is a total of all the budgets combined for general government. It is a $103.5 million increase from fiscal year 26, which is only a 2% increase. For general fund, it is an increase of $24.5 million, which is 2.1%. And there are 46 authorization for 46 new FTE positions, which is a 0.6% increase. Of this increase, DT&B has the largest share of the increases, and most of that is a one-time appropriation, and I will cover that when I get to DT&B. So starting with Department of Attorney General on page 3, it's a recommended increase of $4.3 million, $2.7 million general fund. There's only 2 items being requested, one of which is economics, which are applied to all budgets and which you're familiar with, which are for negotiated salary and wage increases and other expenses. That is $1.6 million, and the other item is $2.6 million gross, $2.2 million GF. This is to return the Prosecuting Attorneys Coordinating Council to the Department of Attorney General. In fiscal year 26, it was removed from the department's budget and transferred to Treasury. Governor puts it back to Attorney General. The PAC is an autonomous agency that just falls under the budget of the Attorney General, responsible for ensuring a uniform system of conduct, duty, and procedure among prosecutors, and also does training and guidance for local prosecutors' offices. I'm going to be skipping boilerplate today. I believe the plan is to cover that in more detail next week of all changes recommended to boilerplate. So moving on to page 5. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Excuse me.
Questions on Attorney General?
A couple questions. I know you and I know that when we've talked to AG, they've said we don't know anything about the prosecutor attorneys coordinating. Why is the governor, do you know why the governor is asking that it be sent back to the AG? Any ideas on that? It's
where it's been traditionally, and I think being, law and legal matters related, it fits there. There's no legal requirement that it be under Attorney General. I know that they do receive, I think, accounting services from the Department of Attorney General. So there's a relation or a tie in that way, despite being autonomous. But otherwise, I think it's just a return to, I guess, the status quo.
Okay.
And there may be more information or details that I'm not aware of.
Okay, well, there's lots that I'm not aware of too. Section 324, do we get this report on payroll fraud enforcement unit report that the governor wants deleted? Do we get it, and who gets it, and when do they get it? This is on page 4, the top, where the governor says she doesn't want that kind of report given.
We do, yes.
Who does it go to? Does it go to you guys at ATFA?
It is sent to a number of, I believe the Appropriations chair the standard report recipients, which should include the subcommittee chair as well.
Well, I find that doesn't happen usually. When they say standard off, it doesn't come to me. But is this something that you receive?
Yeah, I can look at the most recent report that I've gotten and send
Okay.
that to the subcommittee.
Great, thank you, sir. Okay, thanks.
Department of Civil Rights has an increase of 1 million gross, 468,000 general fund. Similarly, as Attorney General and really all the departments, the budgets are thinner than most years, so there's fewer items. For civil rights, there are only 2 items besides the economics recommended increase. First is $500,000 in federal funding for Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. The Civil Rights receives a reimbursement from the Federal Commission for each case that's closed, and that rate has increased from $830 to $850, and they're also receiving a number of cases from the federal department to investigate. Employment cases make up about half of all of civil rights complaint investigations and civil rights complaints. And the second one is a $0 change, 0 FTE change, but the Civil Rights is recommending to unroll the Disability Rights and Compliance Division, or DRACD, into a separate line item. It's to reflect that its work is a little bit distinct from the Complaints and Investigations line from which it's coming. So that's being unrolled. And that is it for civil rights, if there's any questions.
Yes, Rep. Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Federal Equal Employment Opportunity Commission reimbursement, can you restate what you said? So these are referrals from the feds coming to the state, or is it the state going to the feds? These cases?
The state receives a lot on its own through its
Yeah,
normal
yeah.
input, but
Yeah.
yes, some cases are being handed over or transferred to the state. I believe it's for staffing. The federal level, they don't have the staff to handle all of their complaints, so they are
No, they slough them
handing
off
some
on the
off to the
states?
state. Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
the federal authorization would allow them to receive the federal reimbursement for cases that
But
closed.
then they only get $850 if they close the case.
Right, per case. There are,
They have
I don't know the
several
number of cases,
outstanding
but
cases.
yeah, being
you-
half of all cases, I don't want to guess, but it's probably around 1,000 or more.
Yes, yeah. Okay, all right. Thank you.
Just a couple questions on follow-up. Were they asked for 250,000 for the same thing on a supplemental? Does that mean the total is 750?
Yes, and glad you brought that up. In fiscal year 26 supplemental portion, there's a similar item except for 250,000 to reflect a partial year amount.
All right, thank you, sir.
Next is executive office, and this is just simply a 3% increase from the current year for a gross and GF increase of $281,000.
Any questions? Rep. Snyder?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know it's in here, but apparently it's not in the legislative budget. I know there was a request for a transition for a new administration. I guess what budget does that fall under?
That is under DTMB in their fiscal year 26 supplemental portion,
Thank you.
which I'll hit on.
I jumped the gun.
Any other questions?
Legislature, not including the Office of the Auditor General, is recommended for a 5.8 million gross and general fund increase. And in a departure from prior years and tradition, the increase, the cost of living or economics increase, has only been recommended to be applied to the general fund portion of the budget and not restricted funds and other sources. For the legislature, that only results in approximately $45,000 less for legislative retirement and $135,000 less for state capitol historic site. But for Auditor General next, it would hit them a little bit more. So moving on to Auditor General, which is still under legislature. It's recommended a $652,000 gross and general fund increase. At the top table, you can see the increase is 3% for general fund, 2.1% gross overall. And that's because it's only applied to the the increase is only applied to general fund. The impact of that is about slightly less than $300,000 for the Office of the Auditor General than they would have received if it was applied as it was in past years.
Any questions regarding legislature? I have a couple. I know last year there was a lot of talk about making sure the tobacco funds actually went to deal with those who, health-related issues. Initially, apparently, and for decades, these tobacco funds have gone to the Capital Commission. Did we make that change last year, if you recall?
No, those restricted funds were still appropriated.
They were appropriated
Yeah.
to the Capital Commission rather than for some benefit to the citizens related to tobacco use.
Correct.
Thank you.
Moving on to Department of State. Governor recommends an increase of $4.5 million gross. However, in general fund, a decrease of $789,000. So the increase is all in restricted funding. There are only two changes being recommended, one being the economics, which is $4.5 million, and the other one is a $0 change, but a shift between restricted and general fund, where restricted revenue from the enhanced official state personal identification funds is increased $1.2 million and swaps out and reduces general fund by a corresponding amount. This is done, and there's been increasing revenue in that enhanced driver's license fund source due to more people getting enhanced and real IDs. And in fiscal year 26, that fund is projected to carry forward $9.7 million. So this is just a reflection of available restricted funds instead of general fund. And that's it for Department of State. If there are
Any questions on Department of State? Okay, thank you.
Next is Department of Technology Management and Budget, or DTMB, on page 12. Governor recommends a $69 million increase gross, $47.4 million general fund increase, which would be an 8.8% from fiscal year 8% increase from fiscal year 26. Most of that general fund increase, there are a lot of increases and decreases, but much of that increase comes from a one-time appropriation detailed in item number 1 for the statewide voting system replacement. The current voting system was procured back in 2016, 2017 with a 10-year contract. That contract is ending in February 2027, and a new voting system is being solicited for a total of $90.7 million approximately. This appropriation of $43.2 million would cover the gap between what the state has identified in funds carried forward for voting equipment and the cost, the projected cost. Other funds that will be used to make up that difference come from Help America Vote Act or HAVA grants. election administration grants and work projects on those grants, interest from those those funds that are carrying forward, as well as fiscal year 26 and projected 27 funding for election administration. So that's about $47 million projected to be used to complete the full cost. Item number 2 is an increase of $6.7 million for the Michigan Public Safety Communication System, or MPSCS, which is the statewide radio network used for local units and first responders. And it would also include authorization for 15 FTE positions. $2.2 million of the increase would cover the FTE costs. Let's see. And the rest would be for replacing aging equipment, such as radio towers and other equipment with tower locations. This was recommended for the same purpose back in fiscal year 25. There was a $10 million ongoing increase requested. It instead received a $25 million one-time appropriation for these costs. So that being running low, the governor has recommended an ongoing increase of $6.7 million. The next item is another MPSCS request for $2 million, $1.3 million general fund, and this is to cover the ongoing contract costs to support the radio network. Number 4, State Building Authority Capital Outlay Debt Financing. This is the state's payments on rent and debt for capital construction projects financed through the State Building Authority. This usually just is adjusted to reflect actual costs incurred through bonding. I mention it here because it's a $14.1 million increase in fiscal year 27. So much of the increase that you see is on SBA debt financing. Item number 5 is $2 million for a IT data sharing platform to help the state meet requirements for Medicaid and Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, stemming from H.R. 1, or the big beautiful bill at the federal level. This would facilitate information sharing for departments, particularly DHHS, in this case for being aware of federal funding requirements, but other departments and agencies will be able to use it for other federal funding opportunities as well. This item is related to a IT project recommended under ITIF, which I will cover shortly, but also related to implementation of H.R. 1, which would appropriate $2.75 million for automating income and work information for recipients for SNAP and Medicaid, as well as increasing functionality related to notifications, due process, exemptions, and data reporting. So between this and the ITIF appropriation, there's $4.7 million general fund recommended for H.R. 1 implementation, and there would also be $4.9 million federal funds anticipated for the ITIF portion. Just dumping down to item number 7. It's $5.7 million in IDG funding for DTMB support of building operations, most notably the expansion to the secondary complex in Diamondale. Expansions include renovations and additions to the State Police Drive Track facility and the Public Health and Environmental Science Laboratory. Several of these other items are adjustments in IDG authorization and restricted funding for current safe services baseline. I will jump down to item 16, which is Information Technology Investment Fund, which we're likely familiar with. This is the annual allotment for large legacy IT system replacements. For fiscal year 27, $35 million is recommended for ITIF. This is a $15 million reduction from fiscal year 26. $35 million is the ongoing amount, and it sometimes receives a one-time appropriation. So the $15 million reduction reflects the removal of the last year's one-time amount, and there's no one-time amount recommended in fiscal year 27. For fiscal year 27, there are 4 projects being recommended, including the HR1 implementation, which I talked about earlier, as well as projects for MDARD, Natural Resources, and Treasury. And as mentioned earlier, DTB has a supplemental portion being recommended for fiscal year 26. This includes a withdrawal from the Budget Stabilization Fund or Rainy Day Fund of $400 million to help alleviate budget pressures in fiscal year 27. The BSF is approximately a little over $2.2 billion right now. Item number 2 is the gubernatorial transition costs. This is cost to support cost of the gubernatorial transition, which includes space leasing, office equipment, supplies, contractual services, outgoing FTE accrued benefits, and other things. And there is also $100,000 recommended for the state archives for federal grant opportunities. There is also a, for fiscal year, going all the way back to fiscal year 25, $3.3 million recommended for the Civil Service Commission for an ongoing project to replace their IT legacy system, Human Resources Management Network, or HERMAN. These funds were originally requested as part of the legislative transfer request 2025-8, but was not included in the final transfers. And that is all the funding requests for DTMB.
Rep. Maddock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question regarding the gubernatorial. Hang on a second, I gotta find it. Yeah, the gubernatorial transition cost of $3 million. Has that been appropriated in past gubernatorial transitions?
Yes.
It
Yeah,
has been?
it is a traditional appropriation, whenever there's a changeover.
Has it been $3 million in the past?
No, that is a somewhat substantial increase from, I think, the last appropriation. The last appropriation, I believe, was $1.7 million.
1.7?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions? Rep. Van Workum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Going to the first one here on the statewide voting systems replacement. Has that traditionally been in DTMB, or would that be in the Secretary of State's line item? And then you mentioned back in 2016 was the last time we did the replacement, and you mentioned the Help America Vote Act. How much was that funding federal compared to state general fund?
So for the first round, what was the federal funding for the first round back in 2016?
As I recall, there was a significant amount of federal dollars for these replacements.
It was the vast majority. I want to say it was about 35 million, but I will confirm that amount. But it was, the majority of the costs was from federal HAVA. Back in the first round, total costs were 40 million for the system replacement.
Back in 2016?
Yes, and there's been a lot of new machines and voting equipment since then due to early voting and mostly early voting. But the contract for that initial round, that 10-year contract, actually increased about a third to purchase more voting machines. So that is contributes partly to the higher amount requested this time compared to the cost last time.
And this time around, we don't have, I mean, there's a little bit of money from the HAVA, but we haven't heard from the feds of whether there's additional grants available.
So set aside so having received federal funds from HAVA and election security grants and interest on those HAVA funds, that, to do some quick math, it's
Well,
about at least $30 million is available and that the state has now in federal funding.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know, but it says in there, the appropriation would supplement the 47.6 million in available funding from HAVA. So is that a correct number? That you,
The other portion is not entirely HAVA. Some of it is from the unspent balance from
and other things?
the Department of State's election administration line.
But that's how much additional, I'm sorry, Rep. Van Workum. Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I'm reading the paragraph here. I mean, normally you have some restricted dollars and federal dollars accompanied with the change here, so I'm just curious why that's, maybe it's just the format here of what's actually the total budget here, but also the first question, is this traditionally in the Secretary of State's, or has this always been in DTMB line item?
It has gone both. It has traditionally been in the Department of State. The DTMB has received an appropriation before for other rounds too. In fiscal year 26, which is actually part of the savings for voting equipment, $5 million was set in the Election Equipment Reserve Fund. So that will be used too, but that was appropriated in DTMB last year. But yes, otherwise Department of State has been the recipient of those funds.
So do we know who will be purchasing these? This is going to be done through DTMB and not through the Secretary of State?
There is boilerplate included in the exec rec budget, which facilitates any financial transactions necessary for the purchasing. So it'll be a collaboration, partnership. There will be funds having to be transferred from Department of State to DTMB, but DTMB being the central procurement office, they are positioned to purchase too. So,
Thank you.
Rep. Kelly.
Mr. Chair, this is the second swap, where there was one earlier where they kind of go back and forth, and then now here back and forth. I think this demands a little more information of the intent here, why they would do this, particularly in an election year, or I guess they'd be purchasing this after this election year. But to take something out of an office that's traditionally responsible for this at the last minute, I think begs further information.
Rep. Maddock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to go back to page 1 and back up here a little bit. Section 206, disciplinary action against state employees deleted. Are you talking about Yes. Page 1. Page 1. Yeah. Do you have that in front of you, Michael?
yes.
Okay. Can you explain to me exactly what that means? It's a little bit confusing, but I want to make sure the public knows what the intention was here and what the actual, what the rules are regarding state employees talking with legislators.
I would say this is an annual recommendation in the exec rec where this section is deleted and it is restored by the legislature, but it would prohibit departments from punishing any state employee for communicating with the legislature and their staff with information about departments or
Is it true?
operations.
Is it true that if a staff or an employee of the state of Michigan has communication with the state legislator, like myself or anyone sitting here, they have to make a record of it?
I'm sorry, can you ask that again?
Is it true that if a state employee makes contact or has a conversation with the state legislator, any of us sitting here, that they have to make a report on it?
I don't know. I'm not sure about that.
Then why would this even be in here to begin with? What is this trying to accomplish by deleting it?
I'm not sure. I would have to defer to the executive.
So it prevents the department from punishing a state employee if they communicate with the legislator or their staff. That's the way I read it.
Just for clarity for the public, you're talking about the fact that the governor wants that deleted.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. For example, when I went to like my first month or so, I was as a legislator. I stopped by one of the weigh stations on 96, and there was 3 Michigan State police officers there, and I just stopped in to find out how the weigh stations work. I spent about 20 minutes there talking with them, observing how the weigh station works. And I didn't tell them who I was. I told them I was a legislator, didn't tell them my name. But before I left that weigh station, they had to know my name. And I asked them, why do you need to know my name? And their answer was, we need to include it in our report. Anytime we have contact with the state legislator or lawmaker, we have to make a report on it. So I think there's more to the story. I think I don't know if it's true or not, but I think state employees have to make some sort of report. I'd like to find out if that's true or not. Thank you.
I should note on that section that the governor deemed it unenforceable. So some sections are just deleted because they say it's not an enforceable, legally enforceable. That's part of the deletion as well.
Is that all right now? Rep. Snyder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Following up on Rep. Maddox's question, I know there's a history of that section of boilerplate being deleted and put back in. But have previous governors found that, ruled that same section unenforceable? So I just know there's a history of it being taken in and out.
I don't believe it. No, it has not always been declared unenforceable.
Thank you.
Okay, just a couple comments. In response to Rep. Kelly's question, Mr. Knassen and policy staff and I met at length with the Secretary of State. With regard to these election equipment, and their RFP was due on February 27th. Is that when the RFPs were due for election equipment? And they are evaluating. So they work very closely with DTMB. DTMB is just better at that kind of appropriation. Okay. I think that's why the governor has put the money there. But, half the funding is coming from the Secretary of State's already, the funds they already have from prior years. But I did have a couple other questions as well. This Michigan Center for Data and Analytics, it seems to me that we've had like 3 or 4 work projects in a row for the last 3 or 4 years because they hadn't spent money. Do you know if this is a different, why we get work projects on this area and on top of it, added appropriations?
I would have to look back at what those work projects were exactly. I don't remember what those funds are being set aside for exactly.
Okay. And on page 13, number 7, do you have any idea why they're transferring spending authority from IT to the bureau, the office people for customers program support.
You say item 13?
It's item 7 on page
Oh.
13. Says they're transferring spending authority from IT to the office people for customer program support. Do you have any idea on that one?
I believe that this authority from IT is referring to IT and other departments and agencies. I'll have to check on that to confirm exactly how what's being transferred, because I don't think it was exactly clear, but I believe it had to do with transfers from other departments.
Okay. And on number 10, they asked for 13 new FTEs. Do you have any clue why they want 13 new FTEs for that?
Those FTEs would be for Department of Transportation, IT costs, and they would be supported from funding from the new roads package.
On page 14, SWCAP, what is that?
That is the statewide cost allocation plan. It's an annual adjustment made by DTMB to apply their internal funds that they have. So I think straight restricted funds or indirect funds. There's about 6 fund sources that the department uses for charges to departments and agencies. So it's their internal funds and it's their adjustments that they make each year to align fund sources with costs.
And finally, on the civil service supplemental on page 17, do you have any idea what this is about? This is increasing or replacing Herman?
Yes, it is replacing the existing Herman system for Herman 2.0 would be the new system. It received $7.5 million ongoing in fiscal year 26 for a limited time for the duration of the project, which I believe it'll be, I think, 3 or 4 years for the entire project. It was also recommended in fiscal year 26 over $20 million from ITIF. The enacted budget did not include the full ITIF request, so I'm not sure what portion Herman 2.0 received in current ITIF, but it has received funding in fiscal year 26, and this would supplement that.
Okay, and I see it here in this budget. So this is something that DTMB will be in charge of? This $50 million project? At least that's what they said. Total
Yes,
project
since
cost would be about $47.9 million.
They are in charge of all IT projects, but it'll be in partnership with Civil Service Commission.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Lastly is Treasury. On page 18, Governor recommends an $18 million gross increase and a $32 million general fund decrease, which is a decrease of 9.8%. Much of this decrease is from removal of one-time funding in fiscal year 26. There's also a total of 15 FTEs recommended. The first 3 items below deal with tax administration of new proposed taxes. The first one is implementation of the proposed tobacco, vaping, non-tobacco nicotine products tax. This would be an increase of 17 FTEs and $2.4 million general fund. Item number 2 is implementation of the proposed digital advertising tax for $2 million general fund and 5 FTEs. And the third is $600,000 state restricted from Internet Gaming Fund for administration of the proposed Internet Gaming and Sports Betting Tax. And that would receive a 4 FTE authorization. On the next page, item number 4 is increase for IT costs for Michigan Gaming Control Board of $3.1 million. $2.5 million of this amount is appropriated as one-time. About $600,000 would be ongoing. This would be for modernization of their legacy IT system. Number 5, $300,000 is being requested for responsible gaming, specifically focused on youth. This would be state restricted funding from the Fantasy Contest Fund, and others, state restricted funds. Number 6 is a $35.3 million restricted fund increase for constitutional revenue sharing. This was just to reflect its constitutionally required portion of the sales tax. This is a $35.3 million increase from the appropriated amount in fiscal year 26, but that is only a projected, based on projections. Actual funding for fiscal year 26 would actually put this at a $25 million decrease from fiscal year 26. So that's amount available for to go to all locals. So I just want to make that clear. This is, if you're looking at the Budget Act, it's a $35 million increase, but it will reflect a $25 million decrease in total funding available. Item 7 is also revenue sharing, but pertaining to the statutory portion of it. There is no change being recommended either in the funding amount or the boilerplate requirements, but for good measure, I wanted to include it for awareness that there's no changes being recommended for statutory revenue sharing for CV counties and cities, villages, and townships. There may be changes, incremental changes due to changes in taxable rates in locals, but those the formulas remain the same as they were in fiscal year 26. Item number 8, again, there's no change being recommended, but fiscal year 27 is recommended to continue the public safety revenue sharing grants, which was $50 million for counties and CVTs for public safety funding. $35 million would go to CVTs, $11 million would go to counties, and $3.3 million to DHHS for violence intervention programs. There was, in fiscal year 26, a one-time appropriation component to this that is being removed. And that included $10 million for academic scholarships and $7.5 million to CVTs and $2.5 million for counties. That one-time appropriation is not included, but the ongoing portion continues. And there is boilerplate that says, it's legislative intent language that says that it was to be continued for a period of 3 years. Fiscal year 27 would be the second year of that. On the next page, item 13, $1 million in local funding is being recommended to include Flint in Treasury's local city income tax program for the Department of Treasury to assist Flint in local income tax collection. And at the bottom, removal of one-time appropriations. I mentioned the public safety revenue sharing grants. There's also removal of $25 million for public safety constituency grants. And this included $17 million for local prosecutors and $8 million to fire departments. That was a fiscal year 26 one-time appropriation and is not included in fiscal year 27. And those are the highlights of Treasury. I can answer any questions on any other details.
Does anyone have questions? Yeah, Rep. Snyder.
Item number 11 is different than the proposed senior property tax rebate, correct? This is an existing program?
Correct, yeah. Every year, there's an adjustment for this program, so it is independent in that way.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a couple questions about this. So I get that the governor wants these new taxes and wants more people there to process them. But we have an existing tobacco tax, right?
Yes.
And to just increase the amount to $3 would require 10 new FTEs for the tobacco tax?
It would be an increase on tobacco tax and also an increase on the wholesale tax of vaping and non-tobacco nicotine products as well.
Yeah, but the bottom line on number 1 on page 18 says that 10 of those FTEs would just go to tobacco tax. I mean, I just don't understand that. Do you have any understanding of why they would need 10 more FTEs when they already have, what is it going from $2 to $3? Is the governor's proposal?
Yeah. Would have to go to Treasury to get details about FTE needs for that enforcement.
Okay, that would be helpful to know that for sure. On page 20, item 13, when the state takes over income tax for cities, do the cities have to pay anything for that service?
I'll have to check on that too. I'm not certain. I believe the answer is no, but I would have to confirm that.
Okay, if you could confirm that, that would be very helpful. All right. Okay, Rep. Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On page 18, the chair mentioned number 1, why you would need, you're just simply raising a tax on an already taxed product. And couldn't the same thing be said for number 3 or 2 or, I assume these things are already being taxed. They've just increased the tax. And the same thing with some of the marijuana things. And on number 5, I can't possibly think that a good policy would be to expand existing responsible gaming programs targeted specifically to the youth. Seems like a rather kind of a sick policy. I guess that's a comment, not a question.
Thank you, Rep. Kelly. And could you check out this number 5 on why in the world they would want to target youth for betting? I mean, I just, again, as Rep. Kelly was saying, it seems incomprehensible to me, but maybe there's an explanation. If we can get an explanation of why they would be doing that, it would be helpful. Or asking that be done.
Yeah, I will confirm. My understanding, which may be wrong, was to target existing youth gaming for responsible instead of promoting it to youth. But yeah, I don't have the details, so we'll have to check on that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions right now? All right, thank you very much, Mr. Knassen. Certainly appreciate your analysis, and everyone has been here and seeing. Are there any other issues we need to do?
Approve the minutes.
Rep. Kelly moves the minutes, and there being no objection, that is passed, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.